There's an island in the Pacific where nearly 900 giant stone faces were carved by hand. No metal tools, no wheels, no draft animals. For centuries, that's the part everyone obsessed over. How do they build these things? Turns out, that's not actually the mystery. The real mystery is what happened to the people who built them. For decades, we told ourselves a simple story. They wrecked their own island, cut down every tree, destroyed their own home, and collapsed because of it. A cautionary tale about humans being our own worst enemy. Turns out that story is mostly wrong, too. The island that built 900 giant faces and almost disappeared. Before we get into it, if you're into stories like this, hit that subscribe button. Every week, I'm covering a new remote place, a new story most people have never even heard of. All right, let's get into it. This is Rapa Nui. You probably know it as Easter Island. It's only about 24 kilometers long. You could walk across the whole thing in a day. But it's over 3,500 kilometers from South America, and the closest inhabited island, Pitcairn, is another 2,000 kilometers past that. Sit with that for a second. The nearest human beings to this island are more than 2,000 kilometers away. That's not just remote. That's the kind of isolation that's hard to even picture. Imagine standing here. Nothing but ocean. No ships. No planes. No radio. No one coming. Ever. The island itself is just a leftover tip of 3 extinct volcanoes that fused together over millions of years. No rivers. Limited fresh water. Just volcanic rock, grass, and ocean in every direction. And somehow, around 800 years ago, somebody decided this was a great place to start a civilization. Here's something that doesn't get nearly enough credit. The people who found this island didn't stumble onto it by accident. Polynesian sailors crossed thousands of kilometers of open Pacific Ocean with no compass, no GPS, no metal tools of any kind. Imagine sailing for weeks. No compass, no map, no land in sight in any direction, just stars. So, how do you navigate across the biggest ocean on Earth with literally nothing? You memorize hundreds of stars. You literally feel ocean swells to the hull of your canoe. You watch where birds fly at dusk because they're heading home to land you can't see yet. And when the wind turned against you, you didn't just drift, you tacked, zigzagging your way forward instead of giving up. This was some of the most advanced open ocean navigation in human history, centuries before Europeans figured out how to cross an ocean without hugging the coastline. And at some point, likely around 1200 AD, one of these voyages found Rapa Nui. Legend says it was led by a chief named Hotu Matua. Whoever it actually was, they just found one of the most isolated pieces of land on the entire planet. So now you're here. No backup. No way to call for help. What do you actually eat? The Rapa Nui brought crops with them, sweet potatoes, taro, sugarcane, and got farming going almost immediately. But here's the part most people don't realize. About half of their entire diet came from the ocean. Fish, dolphins, sea turtles, seabirds. They even raised chickens. And this is going to come up again, they ate rats. This wasn't society barely scraping by. This was a fully functioning, self-sufficient civilization, isolated from the rest of humanity, making it work. And as that society grew, they started doing something that would define this island for the rest of human history. They started carving faces. Let's talk about the Moai. Almost 1,000 stone giants carved across this one tiny island. Most of them came from a single quarry called Reino Raraku, basically a volcano that became the busiest stone carving factory on Earth for centuries. Some of these things are enormous. The biggest ceremonial platform, Ahu Tangariki, holds 15 moai standing in a row, facing inland. And that detail, facing inland, not out toward the ocean, is actually a huge clue about what these statues even were. Most people assume they're gods or some kind of religious idols staring out at threats from the sea. They're not. They represent ancestors. The moai face their own villages because they were meant to watch over their living descendants. Protectors, not deities. And remember, no metal tools, no wheels, no draft animals to haul these things. So how do you move a multi-ton stone statue for kilometers across an island with nothing but rope, wood, and manpower? Honestly, we're still not 100% sure. Some researchers think they use wooden sledges and log rollers. Others have demonstrated that the statues could actually be walked upright by rocking them side to side, like tipping a refrigerator across a room. Whatever method they used, they repeated it hundreds of times across an entire island. This wasn't an isolated cult building one big monument. This was an organized, coordinated society pulling off a massive engineering project over and over for generations. Now here's where the story everyone thinks they know starts to fall apart. For decades, the popular version went like this. The Rapa Nui got obsessed with building bigger and bigger statues, cut down every tree on the island to move them, destroy their own ecosystem, and their civilization collapsed because of their own greed. It's a great cautionary tale. It's been repeated in documentaries, textbooks, TED Talks. This is what happens when humans destroy their own environment. There's just one problem. It's not really what happened. The island absolutely did lose its forest. That part's true. At its peak, the island was covered in millions of palm trees. By the time Europeans showed up, almost all of them were gone. But the cause wasn't just people swinging axes for ego. And here's the part almost every documentary gets wrong. It was rats. Here's the part that sounds like a joke, but isn't. When Polynesian settlers arrived, they brought rats with them, probably as stowaways, possibly intentionally as a backup food source. Rapa Nui had zero natural predators for these rats. No cats, no hawks, nothing keeping their numbers in check. So they did what rats do when nothing's stopping them. They exploded. Some researchers estimate the population may have reached into the millions within just a few decades of arriving. Here's the key detail. The island's native palm trees produced very few seeds per tree. Imagine planting a forest where every single seed gets eaten before it ever touches the ground. That's not deforestation. That's a forest that never gets a chance to grow back. One archaeologist put it perfectly. Palm nuts were basically rat candy. So you had a runaway rat population eating nearly every seed before a new tree could even sprout. Combine that with people clearing some land for farming, and within a couple hundred years, the forest just stopped renewing itself. It wasn't reckless destruction for the sake of bigger statues. It was an ecological chain reaction nobody could see coming, an invasive species problem, centuries before anyone had a word for that. And here's the twist within the twist. The rats ate themselves into a collapse too. Once the food ran out, their own numbers crashed by over 90%. So the real story isn't humans destroyed their island out of vanity. It's humans accidentally introduced an invasive species that wiped out a forest and then had to completely adapt to survive without it. And that's exactly what they did. This is maybe the most underrated part of the entire Rapa Nui story. When the forest disappeared, the Rapa Nui didn't just give up and starve. They invented an entirely new farming system. Without trees to block wind and without rich topsoil, they started covering their fields with broken volcanic rock, a technique called rock mulching. The stones trapped moisture, blocked wind erosion, and slowly released minerals back into the soil as they weathered. They also built circular stone enclosures called manavai, basically wind-sheltered mini gardens, engineered specifically to protect crops in an increasingly harsh, treeless landscape. Archaeologists have identified over 2,500 of these rock garden sites across the island. That isn't random. That's large-scale planning. Let that sink in. Their environment changed dramatically in a way they never expected. And instead of collapsing, they re-engineered their entire food system from scratch to survive it. That's not the story of society destroying itself. That's the story of society proving it could adapt to almost anything. Here's the crazy part. What came next might be the most extreme competition in human history. And it's real. It's called the Birdman competition. To win, you had to do this. Climb down a 300-meter cliff. Swim roughly 1 kilometer through open, shark-infested ocean to a small islet. Climb back up a sheer cliff face on that islet. Find and steal the very first egg laid that season by a migratory bird called a sooty tern. Then swim back, climb the original 300-meter cliff again, all while keeping that egg intact. Whoever pulled that off first won. Their sponsor became the island ceremonial leader for the year, the Birdman. People knew they might die. They competed anyway. This wasn't some isolated, weird ritual disconnected from everything else. As the old religious system around the Moais started fading, the Birdman competition became the new center of power and prestige on the island. A society doesn't invent a competition as elaborate, as dangerous, and as central to their culture unless they're still thriving, still organized, still very much alive. For hundreds of years, the island had been completely alone. No contact with the outside world at all. Everything the island had survived for 600 years arrived all at once. 1722, Dutch explorers became the first documented Europeans to land here. 1770, the Spanish showed up and briefly claimed it. 1774, Captain Cook arrived. At these early visits, most of the Moai were still standing. The society, while clearly changed from its peak, was still very much functioning. Then everything got dramatically worse, fast. European and American ships brought diseases the islanders had zero immunity to. Measles almost certainly played a role. Smallpox may have too. Historians still debate exactly which diseases arrived first and in what order, but in comparably isolated populations elsewhere in history, outbreaks like this have wiped out 80 to 90% of people in a matter of years. And then it got worse again. In 1805, American sailors kidnapped 22 islanders outright. Over following decades, organized slave raids by multiple nations targeted Rapa Nui specifically, hauling people away to work and die on plantations and mines thousands of kilometers from home. A society that had once numbered in the thousands was reduced to barely more than 100 survivors. This is the actual collapse of Rapa Nui. Not statues, not rats, colonial disease and slave raiding, arriving back to back on a population that had no way to recover in time. And just when you'd think it couldn't get worse, it did. After Chile formally annexed the island in 1888, much of Rapa Nui was leased out and turned into a massive sheep ranch. The remaining islanders were confined behind a stone wall, restricted to a small section of their own homeland, while sheep graze over the rest of it. Imagine that, the descendants of the greatest navigators on Earth, trapped on their own island. The sheep finished off much of the remaining vegetation that the rats and the centuries hadn't already taken. This is the part of the story that almost never makes it into the popular version. We love telling that they destroyed their own island myth. It's simpler. It doesn't implicate anyone else. The real version is messier and a lot more honest. There's one more mystery here that doesn't get nearly enough attention. The Rapa Nui developed a writing system called Rongorongo. To this day, nobody has been able to fully decode it. Only a few dozen wooden tablets survive, scattered across museums worldwide. If Rongorongo was independently invented, and many researchers believe it was. It would be one of only a handful of writing systems ever developed completely from scratch anywhere on Earth with zero outside influence. Look around Easter Island today, and these tablets are some of the only physical traces left of a language nobody alive can fully read. Most of the people who could read it were wiped out by disease and slavery before anyone wrote down a translation. An entire language sitting right there on wooden tablets, unread, maybe forever. For a long time, the story of Rapa Nui was used as a warning. Look what happens when people destroy their own world through greed and carelessness. It's a tidy lesson. It's just not the true one. The real story is about people who crossed the largest ocean on Earth with nothing but stars and memory, who built something extraordinary out of solid rock with their bare hands, who got blindsided by an ecological disaster they never saw coming, and instead of giving up, completely reinvented how they grew their food. The thing that nearly erased them wasn't isolation. It was finally being found. Not a cautionary tale about self-destruction. A story about a remarkable, adaptive civilization and what the outside world did to it once it finally found them. If you like this one, make sure you're subscribed. New stories, new remote places every single week. Like it, comment, share it. It genuinely helps.